Welcome. In this quick tutorial, we're going to learn how to install Kali Linux on a virtual machine. This process is very similar for install on your physical machine. So the first thing you want to do is go over to the kali.org and to the downloads page, and we want to download our ISO. I recommend the Kali 64-bit installer. You could also do the live if you want to run it without installing it, but we're going to go ahead and install it. So download this Kali 64-bit installer. I went ahead and downloaded it already. I have the ISO on my desktop. So from here we can go ahead and create a virtual machine. Now if you're not familiar with the Oracle VM, that's okay, I'll walk you through it. But go ahead and download it. It's free, open source. You go to virtualbox.org, download it. Installation is fairly simple. And then when you start it, it looks like this. Now, you won't have these VMs that I already have running. But let's go ahead and create one. So we'll go to New, and we'll name ours the Kali box. If you type in Linux, it will actually pick the right version for us. So we'll just do Kali Linux. Save it in the folder you want to save it in. For memory, it depends on how much memory your computer has. The recommended is 1 gigabyte. We'll probably want a little bit more than that. I would recommend 4 gigabytes or 8. A lot of these settings will be default. Let's go ahead and create a virtual hard disk now since we don't already have one. If you already had a hard drive for Kali, you could attach it here. We can use the VDI. Dynamically is probably the best. It automatically sizes. It takes up the least amount of space on your hard drive. You want to about 80 gigabytes to create the VM. Okay, so now that we've created the virtual machine, let's go ahead and start it and go through the Kali Linux prompts. So since we don't have an operating system installed, it'll tell us to select the startup disk. We can go ahead and add and browse to our Kali Linux ISO that we downloaded. Choose that ISO and then start the machine. The machine will boot up into that virtual CD, the ISO file. We'll go ahead and use the graphic install. The language prompts, most of these will be default, so we can kind of just go through them. United States, English. One of the trickier parts is partitioning the hard drive. So once we get to that prompt, I'll walk you through that. On a virtual machine, it's very straightforward because we don't have any information on that hard drive. If we did have information, we would want to kind of create a dual boot scenario. So we could boot into either Kali Linux or Windows. And then if you also wanted to use an external hard drive here, we could as well. We can go ahead and leave the host name as Kali. If you're on a domain, most likely you're on a home network, we can leave this blank for here. Select your username. Create a password for the user. Select your time zone. All very straightforward. So now you can see up here we're in the partition disks. We could guided use entire disk if you're on a virtual machine. I only have one disk. I'm going to go ahead and choose that. But if you had multiple disks, you could choose manual to choose what disk you wanted to use. Here I'm going to use guided, use this whole disk. Select all files one partition. Finish partitioning the drive. And yes, we want to write those changes. So the system will do a little bit of pre-installation here. I will go ahead and pause the video and come back when the next prompt is available. Okay, so now it's asking us to use a proxy. If you use a proxy, which most home networks will not, you'll enter it here. If you don't use one, keep it blank. And we will configure the package manager. So Kali Linux will by default install with the default packages. I like to select a little bit more packages, but it does increase the install time thencefold. I'll go ahead and pause the video, and then once we get to the package installer, I'll show you the options that I choose to install Kali with. Alright, we're on the software selection. We have the default desktop environment. That works for me. Here we have the meta packages for Kali Linux. I like to change this to a large collection of tools. It installs a lot more tools. It does take a lot longer to install. From here, it'll probably take 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how much RAM and space how fast your CPU is. So I'll go ahead and pause the video until we're done installing, and the VM might automatically reboot and go into the OS. I'll see you shortly. Alright, now that it's installing, let's go ahead and reboot the machine. First, yes, install the grub bootloader. Select your device, and then we will reboot the machine and load into the Kali operating system from here. Alright, we are rebooted and back into the Kali system now. You can see we're at the default logon page. There is one thing I want to show you to change the IP address so you can get on your actual network. Down here, right click on the computers, go to network settings. Instead of NAT, network attached, go ahead and change it to bridged adapter. This will sync it directly to your network. So now we can go ahead and log in using the same username and password that you established before. And we are in our Kali box. We have all the options up at the top. If you click on the little Kali dragon, you can go through all the pre-installed tools. Up here we have the terminal window. And Kali has changed over the time. It used to be if config to list the IP address. That no longer works. Now we can type in IP address, and you can see the IP address that if you're connected to a DHCP server, that your DHCP server assigned to the machine. And you're now ready to start using Kali. Log out or shut down. In the upper left or upper right, we have the shutdown icon. We can go ahead and shut down the machine. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial.